Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremy Dunham, Games Editorial Manager of IGN.com, and welcome to another episode of Podcast Beyond.
Beyond!
Today, we're joined by a very special guest from Insomniac, Brian Allgaier.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
It's great to be here. Pretty good.
Good to have you. And as always, we're also joined by the PlayStation team, Chris Roper, Editor-in-Chief.
Yo, what up?
Editor Jeff Haynes.
What up, my peoples?
And we have Ryan Clements, Associate Editor.
I'm not as good as Greg.
That's true.
Just get it out of the way.
Speaking of Greg, he was married this weekend, so congratulations, Greg.
Mazel tov.
He is now in the dungeon that we call marriage. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I love you, honey. She listens to this every week. Before we get to our special guest, Chris, it's time for the news, and that means Roper Report.
So,
Time for some news.
there wasn't a whole ton of stuff, but there was a fair bit of interesting things to happen this week. Today, Sony announced that Everyday Shooter would be out on the PlayStation Network on Thursday, so there's your game for the week.
Hooray.
And last week it was announced that the PSP Slim has sold, Slim Thinner, whatever you want to call it, has sold 500,000 units in the first 2 weeks in Japan, so it's popular over there, so that's all very good. Now, in more crazy, disappointing, happy sort of news, first off is that Unreal Tournament 3 is delayed, and you can't see it because it's an audio podcast, but I'm using air quotes, so apparently Midway says that it's going to be coming out in 2008 to sort of protect their financial people so that it doesn't, so if the game slips, they don't get kind of screwed later on for it. But Mark Rain has gone on record and saying that Epic is still trying to finish the game for 2007 release. That doesn't necessarily mean that Midway would still release it this year, even if it was done. But it's possible that Epic will say, hey, it's complete, and then Midway will move it up. But anyway, so it's probably going to be very early next year.
And every major retailer we've seen has moved it to next year.
Yeah, so don't expect that until, January, February or something. There's no official date, but it'll be early.
Still coming out on PC this year, though.
Correct,
Yes.
yeah. So that'll be good. Manhunt 2 is apparently still banned in the UK, even though their board of happiness, or whatever you want to call it over there, recognizes that Rockstar did make changes to the game and sees what they did, and they say, okay, it's better. It still doesn't address the main problems that they had with the game, which it's still ultra-violent, so that's the problem. And Rockstar apparently isn't going to back down anymore. They're like, well, I guess it's not coming out.
I don't understand is why would they not approve the new game? It's so dark you can't see anything.
You can't see anything in the game. Sometimes you see somebody's shoe while somebody else is getting killed.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the concept of ultra-violence. They're still having Clockwork Orange flashbacks, and they don't want it.
That might be it. But anyway, so the UK guys will have to import it or something, or come to the US to buy it. And then lastly, the most, important news is that after much rumor, the US Sony still hasn't said anything about this, but Sony Europe on, I think it was Friday, announced the 40 gig slimmed down sort of PS3, which has 2 USB ports instead of 4. It doesn't have any of the card readers for, SD cards or memory sticks or whatever, and there's no backwards compatibility for PS2 or PS1 games. But it is at a reduced price of 299 British pounds.
Which is equivalent of 1,000 American dollars.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, so right before this announcement, the 60 gig PS3 was 399 British pounds. So you say, okay, cool, that's a $100 or £100 cut, whatever you want to say that.
I'd love to
like
make
a giant slice of meat. But at the same time, Sony also dropped the price of the 60 gig version down to 349 pounds. And is now including 2, as of yet, so far I've seen, 2 unannounced games. So for 50 pounds more, you're going to get 2 games with the system and more hard drive space and backwards compatibility. So in the meantime, it seems like that's the killer deal. But going forward in the future, they're basically going to let the 60 gig sell out in stores, then not support that anymore. So you have the 40 gig for $299, then the 80 gig.
Is it absolute no backwards compatibility, or is it a software-only thing?
Right now, it says on the box it does not support PS2 systems, PS2 games. It seems to me like that could be something done through a software update later on, and maybe it'll get added as a feature, but right now there's absolutely no official support on it.
All right, cool. And that's the news.
That is the news.
Thank you very much. Now, Brian, we get to you. Thank you for joining us once again. We really appreciate it. And obviously our very first question is, how much better is our podcast in full moon? Not really. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Oh, man.
I'm just
starting
kidding.
with the tough ones here.
I've actually listened to that podcast. It's really good. You guys have a lot better editing than we do, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have to thank James Stevenson for that. He's handles the podcast editing, spends a lot of time on it. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it. Your room's much cooler than ours. You got more sophisticated equipment here.
This room is crap.
Believe it or not.
We also have strange writing all over the wall.
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks from like a Heroes episode with Siler writings on the wall.
That's on tonight too.
Oh, hey.
Siler comes back. I gotta watch that.
Okay, yeah.
Now, this is your opportunity to give a plug out there. How often does Full Moon Podcast go out?
It comes out bi-monthly, so it's twice a month, and it's featured on iTunes and on our website. And so it's talking about just game developers, what we do. We're one of the few developer podcasts that are out there. I think there's like 3 now. And we give you insights into the production, what we're working on, and also, we have a mystery guest that comes on, so it'll be another developer that we might interview, and we don't just interview like Sony developers, it's all range of folks. And then we also talk to people that we work with. There's an I Want Your Job segment where we'll find out what it's like to be in QA or programming. And then we even have a riddle too. So if you answer the riddle correctly, you get a prize.
Some of those are hard too. I've heard them. Some of them are easy, some are really hard. Last podcast I heard that I Want Your Job was a localization department. Sounds like a very difficult job. I'm glad that I only speak one language.
Yeah, it's tough.
I know a good riddle.
Do you?
You want to hear it?
Go ahead.
Brothers and sisters, I have none, but that man's father is my father's son. Who is that man?
That great-grandfather.
Yourself.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Very nice.
If I remember the answer correctly. Yes, that's it.
You had to think, wait, was that the answer? Now, the game is Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction is now gold. It's finished. The game is done. What have you been doing now since the game is finished, and what are your plans in the next few weeks?
Well, I've been sleeping more, which is good. So I'm not waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat saying we have to fix the bug on level 17. And I've been playing games. So I've been playing Heavenly Sword, which is a lot of fun, great storytelling, and BioShock. Just got through that. So kind of catching up on a lot of stuff that I haven't had a chance to play.
Did you like the ending to BioShock? I love the whole game except for when I got to the end. I was like, oh.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
They didn't quite pay off.
I felt the ending was a little generic. That it could have been part of, I guess, any first-person shooter game on some level. So, I was a little disappointed by that. And I did feel like I was kind of strung along quite a bit on these fetch quests. But overall, just the whole world, it's just a magical, kind of enchanted setting. And so it was just fun to kind of wander around, discover these little corners, and find weird, half-dead kids running around.
It's a magical world.
Speaking of magical worlds, Ratchet and Clank this is the first PS3 installment of the series, and a lot of people have been curious since E3, which is the last time we saw it really in depth. What changes have you made? What's different? And what are some of the areas you've been focusing on?
We've been really focusing on the variety aspect. We want to get back to what we felt made the original games more magical, and we felt like we kind of lost some of that when we went to Deadlocked. And so it's just getting the variety and just the kind of the level of sophistication that you can get with the graphics and the visuals. We have much more expressive characters, much more just detailed environment, a lot of stuff going on. We're completely just filling the frame with activity. And so it gave us an opportunity to have much more saturated environments and just a lot of different locations that you're going to. And sometimes we open the game up where it's more exploration, free roaming, and then we kind of tighten it up and it's more channeled and action-oriented. And so we're just very conscious of giving that level of variety to the players. We've got this new type of weapons called combat devices where you can throw out a lot of different things that are overpowering. Like typically we'd scale back our weapons and to balance them out, but we consciously made these really powerful weapons like the Groovatron, which is the disco bomb that you can throw out, make enemies dance.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and so it works on both a humorous level and a strategic level. So if you're ever in a pinch, you can toss this out, and they'll dance, and then you can shoot them. And then we've got Mr. Zircon. He's a little robot you can toss out, and he'll be by your side. He serves as backup, and we'll take out enemies and just comment randomly on them. He'll take that Cragmite Overlord, when you're fighting, well, I don't want to give away a spoiler, but a very significant enemy. And then we've got the Visicopter, which is a remote control helicopter with the 6-axis. I'm moving my hands right now to demonstrate. And And so, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of bringing everything up to a greater level and looking at a lot of the past games, what made them feel special, and then seeing how we could translate that to the PlayStation 3. And I feel like on some level, our previous efforts have kind of been like prototypes for this one. You know, we finally got to realize that awesome grind rail train dodging chase sequence that we always wanted to do. And just really getting to realize a lot of, great stuff.
So here's what I want to know is with every time if a company moves from the PS1 to PS2 or the PS2 to PS3 or whatever system it is, they go, finally now we can realize our vision. It's amazing. It's now perfect. And then 5-6 years later, you come to the next system and you're like, finally now we can realize our vision.
Well, I mean, it's true though. I mean, you're always trying to get better at what you do, and you're trying to make better games. And so you, with this game, there's stuff that, maybe we had on the list that didn't quite make it. I mean, the disco bomb weapon was on our list for Ratchet 1, and then we just kind of held back on it, and we get to do it now for Ratchet and Clank Future. And there's some other stuff that I can't talk about because we save all of our good ideas, and we save them for later for other games.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question because, like, the series was so successful on the PS2. Like, what exactly, aside from just the scope of it, are you doing to expand upon the world that was really, or the universe that was really so well defined on the PS2?
Really, it's just kind of focusing on what we've done well and just doing it better. And it is that variety and that adventure aspect and that sense that you are going on this really big adventure, traveling to different planets, meeting different factions. And so we thought we had a lot of time. We had a 9-month pre-production period where we could kind of think about, okay, who are the space pirates? What are they after? What do they want? Where do they live? And what are they doing? And we can kind of flesh out those little stories so that when it all comes together, you're really building up this fantasy and you're making it much more believable on some level. I think it's really easy for developers to get caught up on, here are our bullet points. We've got we got multiplayer, co-op, whatever it is. You can even give you, I don't know, soft drink or something if you need one. I don't think
that would be awesome.
Yes,
I would
there
love
you
that
go.
feature.
PS3 automatically dispenses a Coke.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, it's you're always thinking about that. But really, we were thinking about how do we tell a great story and make a fun game, and let's let it evolve out of that.
One of the questions we get most from our readers and listeners is how much attention does a developer pay to its audience and its community? And coming out of E3 and impressions there, were there anything from the game media or the people that were in attendance at the show that you took from that you said, maybe we should alter this, add this, take this away? Was there anything that you actually changed the game based on your feedback?
Well, we one of the big things we were really concerned about was we were going to announce that we didn't have multiplayer, and we were kind of scared that we were going to get this reaction like, "What? I'm not buying that game." And we were really astounded to get the impressions that great, we love what you guys do. We want you to make an awesome single player game. Put all your effort into it. And so that kind of feedback kind of helped reassure us that we were on the right track, and we weren't going to try to shoehorn in this multiplayer component at the last minute. And so that was nice. And then we got a really great reception on the Groovatron, the disco weapon. And, before I was telling everyone, okay, we got to make every enemy dance. And, it's a lot of work to do that. And so some people were like, oh, man, every enemy? And so afterwards, after E3, we were like, everyone's like, we got to make every enemy dance, because everyone loved the Groovatron.
Was there any one aspect of the game that you would wanted to put in the last game that you could put in here, or was this basically something that you knew you could only do on the PS3?
There's stuff like the 6-axis control, and as a developer, it's kind of fun to get a new kind of control option to be able to play with that. And we know that 6-axis has been getting some flack, with certain games, and so so we're very conscious of making sure that it was received well, and so we had fun playing with it. There was some stuff like the tornado launcher where we would fire. We had it such that it didn't even use the 6-axis. You'd fire a tornado out and just watch it suck up enemies, and we kept having this urge to want to control it somehow, but we couldn't give up a stick because you're controlling Ratchet or the camera. And then one of our testers, Billy Parmenter, is like, "Hey, why don't you just use the 6-axis?" We're like, "Oh, of course." And so that turned out to be a really fun weapon.
Now, this is getting away from the game a little bit, but Insomniac has been named one of the 50 best companies to work for years. It seems every year it wins that award. What is it about working at Insomniac that does make it one of the best companies to work for?
I have to probably say it's Ted Price. He's our CEO, and he's a great guy, and he's very conscious of what the work atmosphere is like and how people are feeling. And so he's really good at kind of reading a situation and knowing that if people are overstressed or they just need to blow off steam, and he's just very conscious of that. And so it's just great to have a boss who really understands where everyone's coming from. And we do have a very kind of disciplined work ethic, and I think that's really good. I mean, we're not. One thing we're very conscious of is not working too much overtime, having that work-life balance, and so he's been very supportive of that. And so that's really kind of the key, is just really acknowledging how much we're working and what are we working on, and we have a lot of fun stuff that we do. We're going racing for our rap party on Thursday, which will be fun. We go in these like mini carts and try to kill each other. And
there's an idea in that.
Yes. Wait. So there's just a lot of fun events that we do, and I've been working here for 8 years now, and it still retains kind of that small company atmosphere. When I joined, I think I was like the 22nd employee, and we've grown to like around 150. And so, Ted still makes an effort to get everyone in one room and tell us kind of updates frequently and where the company's heading and what we're doing. So I think everyone really feels like they're involved, and it's a very collaborative process working on these games.
I've been to your office. It's definitely has a very family type atmosphere, which I think is really cool. Very similar to IGN in a lot of ways in the editorial department. So I definitely appreciate that. Now, one question I think a lot of people are also very curious about is, once your project is done, how long of a break do you take before you decide, okay, now it's time to go back to the grind and create another game?
Well, everyone gets a few weeks off break afterwards, and we kind of stagger it so that not everyone's just kind of left the building. It's a ghost town. And, it's interesting. I think I'm kind of crazy on some level, because I'll be working at the end of the game and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just insane. I don't ever want to work on another video game again. And then like a week later, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about this new idea. And, and I kind of want to jump right back into it. So I just think there's a lot of passion that's there. And you really look forward to the next big thing, even though it's a tremendous amount of work to make these games.
If there was one thing you could tell Ratchet and Clank fans to really remember about Ratchet and Clank future, maybe they don't have a PS3 yet, maybe they're on the fence about getting this one right now, what would you tell them is the big hook about this game that we should definitely draw them in?
It's probably the only epic adventure game I'd say coming out this year that's really going to make you laugh really hard. It's a lot of humor. There's some really funny scenes in it, and anytime you're not laughing, you can always throw a Groovatron out and watch a new dance or something. Watch this little choreographed, stage, dance-a-thon.
And it is a fact, every character in the game does dance.
That's right. Yep.
Including Quark.
Well, you never get an opportunity really to hang out. I mean, you see Quark in cutscenes, but he's not standing around or anything.
Oh, see, so. Quark Groovatron, that would be awesome.
Quark's on the move.
Could that be a cutscene or maybe an outtake?
Hey, that's good. Well, if the game weren't done.
Well, now it's time to get to our reader question mail. This is a mix of questions of both Ratchet and Clank and other subjects. First question comes from P. Chimmy. Don't know what that means, but that's the name. And Brian, they want to know if there's any difference between the PS3 and 360 versions of Assassin's Creed.
Well, being an expert on this matter, I have no idea.
Jeff, you can take this one. You saw Assassin's Creed recently.
Yeah, we went up to Montreal to check it out, and while every single time that we've seen the game, it's always been on a 360. There were PS3 builds in the office. Now, we obviously couldn't just stand over somebody's shoulder and just watch them play the game, because then they just look at us and yell at us in French. But what we did do is, like, we took a really quick comparison of those two, because a lot of times they're just side by side. They look really similar. I mean, they look exactly the same. Didn't really see any frame rate issues. Didn't see any lack of texture resolution or anything else. So as far as we can tell, it's probably going to be exactly the same. But until we actually get our hands on a PS3 version, we don't really know for sure.
George wants to request more Jeff impressions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
one thing we were considering
How
was...
about Jeff imitating Jeff? Yeah.
That's too easy. One thing we were considering was having everybody do a Jeff impression, including Jeff, and then have the listeners see if they could identify which one's the real Jeff.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, my God. We'll save that one for a
Fool's
future.
joke?
No, look, it says
This is
so
your
right
worst
there.
nightmare.
I feel so special and loved.
Curtis wants to know why he's hearing very little about Eye of Judgment. If this game were released on the Wii at its price point, we'd never hear the end of it. And is it worth his time? Is Sony not promoting it properly? In his opinion, like Folklore, or is it just one of those games that's slipping through the cracks? Ryan, you've been spending a lot of time with that game.
Yes, I was playing it, I think, last week a little bit, and I'm actually going to be writing up the review very soon. So you will get to hear about it when I write the review.
I actually checked our object page. We have 6 previews on that game.
Yeah, we have a lot of them. So I'm not really sure what he's talking about.
Have you actually checked out Eye of Judgment? Or?
I haven't really had a chance. I mean, I've seen it at various events and stuff. It looks really cool. So it'd be fun to play.
It's not my type of game. I'm never going to be able to get into it, but I know you're into it, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much.
You know what I think it is? I think at every single, because it's been on display at E3 and stuff like that, but certainly every single Sony-specific event, it's been there. And a lot of times it's like, okay, the big game that is being shown off at this event is Uncharted, and the big game at this event is Ratchet. And it's like, well, okay, Eye of Judgment's always there, and we're always writing something about it, but it's sort of, it's not the top.
Like the support game.
Yeah, it's not the top game that we're showing about. So I think that's probably the issue. But yeah, I mean, if you go and look at what we've written about, we've written a ton of stuff. So
think it's got what it takes to be a sleeper?
A sleeper hit? I don't know. I have to play more of it. I played it for a couple hours last week, and once we got the kits in and gave it a shot, but I want to play more of it before I make a decisive decision.
Alrighty, Stoicism99 says, how come we haven't discussed or reviewed Dungeons & Dragons Tactics for the PSP? Jeff did review it on September 4th, gave it a 6.5.
Yeah, we already went over that. It would be a good game, but it's got a lot of issues.
This question comes from 2779. Do you think the Ratchet and Clank series is underrated by the mass media, Brian?
Underrated by the mass media? I don't know. I think it's been getting some great ratings. Is he talking about reviews, do you think? Or
he just says it's underrated mass media. Why does the series not get the respect in the media as the same level as other Sony franchises?
I think it gets a huge amount, so I don't know. I don't think it's underrated, I guess.
Me too. I rate it high, so. Ha.
We'll rough them up.
Kodu wants to know, in your upcoming games, what do you think about the inclusion of vibration? Is it something you're going to do for DualShock 3 when it comes out? Are you going to add that support for Ratchet and Clank? We're going to go back and see it in Resistance, etc. We already know it's coming for Resistance through a software update.
And we've actually added it for Ratchet and Clank. We already had it working, so I've played through the game multiple times with Rumble. And it feels great. Metropolis opening with the bridge crumbling and the buildings tumbling down. You feel the action.
Are there no conflicts between using 6-axis and having Rumble at the same time?
There haven't been. We have Rumble happening with the Tornado launcher, and you feel it rumbling the whole time as you're controlling it. And I've never had any issues where it was going one way and I was tilting the other.
Cool. This one also comes from Stoicism's 99. Ryan, you may be reserved on the mic, but your penmanship is penultimate.
Well,
the Folklore review was win.
Yeah,
we put
a picture of win there, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, I appreciate the kind words.
I am ACN, or as we like to call him, I am Mackin. Says that everyone knows that the Ratchet and Clank series is king of the platforming shooting genre, but if you could put Ratchet and Clank in a different genre of game, what would it be?
It'd have to be a turn-based RPG. I'm just kidding. Well, we tried first. We've tried the shooter, right, with Deadlocked. I think it fits well as an action adventure platformer.
Do you think that's its direction for the rest of its days?
Well, what are the other directions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bundy says, in regards to the PlayStation, I didn't name the guy. It says in regards to the PS3 operating system. He knows that there's plenty of talk about home in the Beyond podcast.
Beyond?
And he was fiddling around in the PS3 menu the other day and noticed that there's an option to install another OS. He hasn't heard of another OS. Do we know of any other operations? Chris, you've already covered this before, but go ahead and take it
That
away.
has been there since day one. Pretty much you can... So, from what I understand, Sony has left the PS3 open to anybody that wants to port an OS to it. And the cell is basically a PowerPC, so pretty much, I think... There might be some problems with some things, but anything that should run on a PowerPC for an open thing, not like the Mac OS. Anyway, you can install it in there. So versions of Linux and whatever else are pretty much what everybody's running. So you can install Linux on the machine, other flavors of Unix, and then do that. Except that it kind of sucks because you only get half the RAM. So and it's actually less than that. You only get like 192 megs of RAM.
That's not sufficient.
No, because you only get because the system memory is split into 2 banks of 256, and then 64 megs of that, give or take, get put into video memory, and So it works, and it does work well, I guess, but you can't use it to like play games or anything.
You realize there's a large audience of people going, I have no idea what he's saying right now.
Anyway.
I'm included, actually.
Short answer is you can install Linux, but you don't really need to.
Well, but there is a hands-on of your experience with Linux on the
From
PS3
way back in the day,
when.
yeah.
You can do just do a search in our
It would have been
search field.
it would have been, if you look by date, it would have been last December, I think.
PS3 Linux hands-on, right?
Yeah, something like that.
This question comes from Skyline 34 GTR, long name. And this is really more of a question for the Sony marketing department, but wants us to ask Insomniac. It's a little off topic, but are we going to see any more of the old school Ratchet and Clank commercials that were similar? He really liked the Gravity Bomb commercial from way back when. Wants to know if you're going to use a similar
One of my
That
old,
one was awesome.
One of my old roommates
Feature.
actually worked on those commercials.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he said that the guy that shot them made it a giant. He was a special effects guy, and so far as last time, he worked at the orphanage up in the city. But he said it was a pain in the ass because the guy that filmed it. Usually, when you do blue screen effects, you need markers all over the place. You know where to pan the
right.
camera, and they just did it all handycam style. And then gave him something of like backyard footage, and we're like, add these crazy special effects in and make it look perfect. And they're like, well, okay, we have to do this by hand, like frame by frame.
Oh,
Turned
wow.
out well.
Yeah, but I mean, they're awesome commercials.
They're great. Yeah, we actually have some of those guns around the office, and they're really heavy, too. But they're these huge, oversized guns.
Do they work?
Do you know if those
No.
Do you know if those sort of commercials are in the marketing plan, or has that not been talked about yet?
There's been discussions and stuff, but I think we want to try something new and different. And I've heard, I've seen some footage, and it's looking really good. It's really funny stuff.
Excellent. Angry Shadow Man wants to know how he can get his wife to enjoy video games on as many levels as he does. She has a DS, and that's pretty much all she plays because it's easy to pick up and play. He hears about me and how I play with my wife all the time in video games. That's what it says. And how she's a good gamer, but how can I get a wife that does the similar thing? That's what that says.
How can he trade his wife in for a gaming wife?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically wants to know how to introduce her.
I guess to hum the Mario Brothers tune to her while she sleeps, you know, or hypnotize her
Subliminal.
slowly. Yes.
It's all about finding that hook, the one thing that really appeals to her. If she's really into puzzle games or maybe even if she's a great fan of storytelling, introducing her to an adventure game would probably be a really good idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's really about finding that hook and finding out what appeals to her, and then just be very subtle about it. Don't force it, and I bet you anything she'll grab on.
Yeah,
And a
look,
lot of women like Ratchet and Clank too. So
yeah, look for something that's easy to play and like immediately rewarding constantly. Like my wife liked the Burnout series, even though she doesn't really play racing games. But Burnout is just everything you do, somebody's crashing, and it's you get that visceral feel, and all you're doing is just driving. So
Yeah, or depending, something that might appeal. I mean, since he mentioned that that she plays a lot of DS, get her something like Puzzle Quest. Depending upon what it is, either the RPG element will appeal, the easy puzzle aspect of the puzzles in Puzzle Quest might appeal, or just see, like, if you're playing a game and she just wants to watch it, that might actually be something that helps as well.
Also, don't fret. That women are into games a lot more than you think. In fact, having worked in this industry now for 6 years, I can tell you that it's made up of mostly women in the PR side and on the marketing side. So they're everywhere. Just keep looking.
Girls also like
Although
music
he's married,
games.
so don't keep looking.
Well, he was looking for a gaming wife.
Well, no, just looking how to get her in. I don't think he wants to trade her in. It's not like an old escort or something.
Yeah, we're starting trouble at home.
We60 would like to know, have you ever thought of developing for something on a platform other than a Sony system?
We are an independent developer, so we have that opportunity. But we really are happy working with Sony. We've been developing for Sony ever since Insomniac got started with Disruptor, and we're learning a lot about the PlayStation 3, and we've been multi-threading and learning about the cell processor and putting stuff on the SPU. So we're really feeling good about working on the PlayStation stuff.
What's your opinion on working on the PlayStation 3? We've heard different opinions from a range of developers, and it's easy to program for, or it's difficult, it's in between. What's your status on what you think it is to develop for that system?
Well, I don't program on it, and I don't have a lot of understanding of the underlying code. But I work a lot with the programmers and the tech guys, and it's got a ton of power, and it's just some work in getting that power out of it. And working on Resistance, it was a big bear just because it was a launch title, and all launch titles are, especially when you're doing multiplayer, co-op, and single player. But for us, it's been pretty smooth, and we're learning a lot, and we're building off of what we're doing. And we have like an R&D section to our website at insomniacgames.com where we share a lot of this knowledge with other developers.
Cool. Now, Phi1234 is very curious about the process of releasing a game. Ratchet and Clank is already gold, but he's curious about once it's completely done, what determines when it comes out. It's in fact, for a while, I was thought it was going to come out on the 23rd. Now it's going to be on the 30th. Why do they have to wait a few weeks after it's done before it comes out?
Well, once the game goes gold, there's several weeks where we submit it to format testing, and that's where they do a very rigorous testing process. And every game's kind of given these points on how it's rated on whether or not it's going to pass, and so that takes a little bit of time. It takes like a week or so, and then after that, it has to go off to manufacturing and get stamped, and we have to create tens, hundreds of thousands of copies of it, and then of course those all have to get distributed to stores. So all of that takes a lot of time. And we wanted to make sure that we spent enough time making sure that we fixed every bug and that it was the way we wanted it. And we realized we had to take an extra week. And if that meant delaying when the game ships, then so be it. We didn't want to give people a game that wasn't perfect.
Is it possible to actually re-gold a game? You submit it and then find out one little thing you overlooked and you have to go back?
Sure. There's a lot of times where games do get kicked back and you have to fix stuff. And we've just been really good at making sure that it's the way we want it before we submit it. And, yeah, it goes through.
Makes perfect sense. We60 wants to know if we think it's possible for a PlayStation 3 game to get IGN's Game of the Year award. Since Okami won last year's Game of the Year and God of War won before that, is it possible that it has a chance?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, there's still a few months left before all the games come
Yeah,
out.
and
so.
it's not like there's a bias against the PS3, even though the
only
boards
yours.
believe. Well, yeah, to hell with that system.
Pseudoprime1979 is really interested in Ratchet and Clank, but he hasn't played any of the previous games. Since he's busy and doesn't have time to backtrack to play 6+ games, there aren't 6 games. How are you going to introduce new players to the Ratchet and Clank story, characters, mythology? Well, there's 6.
Well, maybe he's got an PSP.
They count wireless.
Yep.
But does he have to backtrack, or is this a self-contained story?
It's a self-contained story. When we were working on the first 4, we weren't really too conscious of making a series of games in a saga, and so we've been more conscious of that. And so if we're kind of planning out the trajectory of all the stories and where things might go. We're always conscious of making sure that people can play the game, and we make some references to previous games, but you don't have to get them to really enjoy the full experience.
Jeff Ramzaroop has 2 questions. His first one is, would the Insomniac team ever consider doing any PSN games?
Well, Mr. Ramzaroop, that's a possibility. I mean, there's a lot of fun things to kind of explore now with both the PlayStation and the PSN network. So, the Ratchet and Clank series, we do plan on having it touch the network in some way, and that's definitely a possibility.
By the way, use your influence and powers to get Disruptor on the PSN for
hey, that's a good idea. I'll have to talk to the Universal guys.
Yeah, please do. Because I think I'm the only one in the office that I know that's actually played that game. And you guys are missing out. Mm-hmm. His other question is, if you could change one thing about the Jak and Daxter games, if you moved over there, what would be the one thing about that franchise that you would change?
Getting blindsided by a car in Jak 2. I think that was my one frustration with that game is I would just be driving along and get hit in the side. So, otherwise, great stuff.
There you go. GTA 3 ABC ASA. What? That's his name. This is the question for the PlayStation team. After going through the first impressions of Lair, you guys seem to like it, but come review time, it got a poor score. What's up with that? How can I believe your first impressions if when the game comes out you don't like it as much?
Well, as is always the case, a lot of times you'll see a game, and unless the game is done, there's always work to be done onto the game before it's finished, right? So you'll play something and the controls might not be quite perfect. Uncharted is a perfect example. This first time that we played the game, the camera was super fast. It was really loose. Drake didn't have a whole lot of weight to him. Now, the most recent time we've played it, the game feels great. Drake's got plenty of weight to him. It's a completely different thing. So first time you see the game, you have to give it that, assumption that they're going to fix that and nail it down and say, okay, assuming that this happens, this game's going to be really cool. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and other times, you might be playing a build, and the way that it works at that point is fine for the level of the build that they happen to have. Then, as they're continuing on the process, they might have one little thing that completely like unbalances the rest of the game, and then all of a sudden you're playing and you're like, wait a second, this is not what it was like a few months ago, and that just completely changes what you thought, because what happened before worked. Now it's completely screwed up.
By the way, if I may, Ryan, please stop interrupting everybody.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
Yeah, we're about to tell you to shut the hell up.
This dude wants to know what sort of
His
decision
name,
making.
this dude?
No, I'm just,
Okay.
what sort of decision making goes into which editor reviews which games?
A lot of it's on who likes what genres and the experience they have with them. I don't review RPGs because I don't know RPGs at all. But I happen to be a huge racing fan, so I review most of the racing games that come across the system. And that's pretty much the case. Most everybody plays action games, so it's sort of like who has the time to do it and who's kind of into that thing. So it's sort of, if somebody's really into a series and it really wants to, because it is work, you have to put a lot of time into playing these games. So it's like if you have the option of playing something that you really want to play or something that you're sort of passable on, we try to give the people the games that they want to play in the first place.
Or sometimes we flip a coin.
Yeah. Paper, rock, scissors, or Rochambeau.
Rogue Leader wants to know if we really think
Stay on target.
if we really think Killzone 2 is going to make it to Q1.
I don't know.
Good answer. Cake Foo wants me to ask Chris Roper, why aren't dogs allowed on the tour bus?
That's a story.
You're looking at your arm like there's a bite there or something.
There's a scratch.
Yeah.
No, that's a burn.
Oh.
Bad memories.
Would 2779 has a second question from earlier. Would you ever consider designing a level from Insomniac's side for Little Big Planet?
Yeah, that's actually come up. We've talked to the Little Big Planet folks, and we were just kind of joking about the idea of it. Of course, I think they were kind of drunk at the time, but no, they weren't. But yeah, it's a funny thought.
What would it take for you guys to do it? Would it like a big letter writing campaign? Say, for instance, if they visited your website and wrote you a bunch of emails.
I think we could
That's a
just buy
hint.
the game and make one, right? I don't think we have to really, talk
go.
to them. Yeah.
They're not going to give it to you for free?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to trade.
Okay. Yeah,
The Great 118 says, Insomniac, you guys seem to be able to, make quality games a lot quicker than anyone else. You launched PS3 with by far the best game, and here you are with one of the best of 2007 only a year later. That said, what would be next for you guys in 2009 and beyond? And is Resistance and Ratchet pretty much what you guys are going to focus on, or do you guys have plans to explore other IPs as well?
That's a very good question, and I don't know the answer to that.
There you go.
That's a mystery for us where our future lies.
That should be your next riddle.
Yes. Yes.
What's our next game?
FF Obsessed 86 wants to know if we could ever hope to see Resistance on PSP.
That's I don't. I'm sure that's a possibility.
Brian is looking at the Sony rep in the room very carefully at the moment.
Everything's a possibility, right?
So we'll skip that one for now.
That's not even a comment on rumors or speculation. That's a
It's pick of the week time. Pick of the week. Pick of the week is always the time of the show where we talk about what game came out this week, worth playing, worth checking out. Any suggestions for this week?
I don't know.
Well,
Wow. Every week I ask you guys,
there are two. It could be Final Fantasy Tactics, War of the Lions, or Siphon Filter, Logan Shadow.
Oh, yeah, Siphon Filter.
Two
That
PSP games that are both really, really good.
You gave Siphon Filter the highest rating we've ever given any PSP game,
Yes,
did you not?
I believe so. 9.5.
So, in your opinion, it is the best PSP game ever released?
It is, in a way, better than Dark Mirror. It basically takes everything that Dark Mirror was and it improves on it.
Really?
Yes.
Well, definitely in the score region.
Well, not only in the score region, but I mean, Logan has a lot more abilities now. They even take a pot shot at Halo at one point, which is just really funny in the training video. The underwater combat is really, really nice. It takes a little getting used to, but once you do, it's really easy to do. And the multiplayer is improved. It's no longer easy for really skilled guys to just beat up on noobs. They actually make it balanced in multiplayer settings, and they've redone a lot of the maps, added a completely new gameplay mode, and changed objective into sabotage. So it really is a tighter package. And the cliffhanger ending is one of those situations where it's like, okay, Sony Bend, we want like Episode 3 next year, because you have to either solve this or bring it over to the PS3, and it better be good, because the way that they left it, it's one of those things you really want to see concluded.
You're throwing down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
What are you going to play this week, Brian?
I'm going to Carmel, California with my wife. So
He's playing nothing.
yeah, I've been actually playing Phoenix Wright's Ace Attorney on the DS. So whenever I get a chance, I sneak off and do that.
Hey, when you go to Carmel, be sure you check out Creme Carmel. It's a pretty good old restaurant down there.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if it's still open, but it was the last time I was there.
Oh, cool. All right.
When is the official release of Folklore, though? Isn't that
Folklore is
that this
tomorrow.
week?
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Shouldn't that be?
Yeah.
Or does pick of the week have to be?
No, go for
I
it.
just threw out 2.
Why no? I'm just offering another one.
There
Well, there
you
you
go.
go.
So much tension.
So now there's 3.
Right. So now you have
Three.
tons.
And you like that game apparently more than anyone else in the universe.
Not in the universe.
So
That's
far,
crazy.
It's the highest score.
No.
It is. No, that's a fact. It is the highest score so far.
It's tied for the highest score with some random ass website.
yeah, some
Oh,
guy
some
never heard
random
of.
ass?
It's like
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Dumbo Guy's page or whatever.
No, it's a really good game, so I don't know what anybody else is talking about. I can easily defend my views of that
He
game.
gets so angry whenever anyone brings up his folklore score. It's awesome.
That's because everybody around the office is like, "You're crazy, man." Ooh.
See, all good suggestions, though. That means that now that that's over, we're pretty much done with our podcast. Ryan, you've been working on a song to say goodbye.
Yeah. I have a song.
Before you sing it, a couple programming notes. First, I want to thank Brian for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great being here.
Excellent. It was great having you. I hope it wasn't too painful. And
It's going to get more painful real soon.
and also, for those of you wondering about our Naughty Dog interview, Richard Lamartian, who was here last week, actually pre-recorded an interview for us, but we're going to be holding on to that until next week since we're going to be quite busy and would be a good way to fill up the podcast. So he's going to talk about Uncharted and some interesting things there. And also, of course, send all your well wishes to Greg and congratulate him on being married. Woo-hoo! Finally scoring a girl at ps3_mail@ign.com.
Finally scoring a girl.
Ryan,
Yes.
take us out.
I think some people recognize this, and it's a surprise to the folks in the office. So, are we ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Oh shit! How does it go? All right, ready.
That doesn't instill us with confidence.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. That was the opening.
Okay.
Podcast beyond, there's no better place to be than sitting in an all-white room and talking about Sony. Dunham knows about everything. Roper's got the news. Jeff is smooth, Greg's real funny, and Ryan is no use. So Monday morning we eat lots of bagels. Then lunchtime rolls around and it's all fun. Do, 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 do. Monday afternoon we finally get to work and the podcast is done. Podcast beyond. There's no better place to be than sitting in an all-white room and talking about Sony. Do, 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 do.
That's all for this edition, folks. We'll see you next week.
Beyond.
We're out.